Hello everyone and welcome to QualityOldHomm. Today we are having another tier list, this time from Necropolis' unit roster from Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Olden Era demo. And this is kind of initial thoughts of the unit, so it's based on one unit test and one playthrough of single hero challenge and another playthrough of a classic map. So rather limited experience with the units and their abilities, but I hope this will open up discussion and hopefully we can also gather some relevant feedback for the developers to further enhance the game. But without further ado, let's begin with tier 1 units. First we have skeletons, and actually I think they go straight up to D tier. They feel really weak units, and they are rather slow, and now you don't even get the additional benefit of being able to resurrect, especially these guys. And to make matters even worse for the skeletons is that the upgraded skeleton dwelling does not require alchemical dust to upgrade. So really kind of a unit to get rid, or rather to upgrade as soon as possible. Then we have skeleton warriors. I mean, I think they can do something, at least somewhat better fighters than those basic skeletons, can even deal some additional damage and so on and so forth, so C tier. And then we have skeleton archer, and I think I will put it into S tier. By itself the unit is not really that great, but combined with necromancy you will get perhaps thousands of these by the end game, and then even a weak unit becomes quite a power stack, able to one-shot even the best neutral creep stacks in the game. So I think it deserves a place over there. But if you want to disagree, feel free to do so. Of course, necromancy applies also to these, but I think as they are slow melee creatures that do not have that great initiative, the high numbers are not really that great for them. So that's the reasoning for the quite big gap between these two units. Then we have whites. What I like about them is their kind of vampirism or healing ability, but on the other hand they do take quite heavy casualties as they don't have any defense, so it kind of feels like a bit of a tactical unit. You don't want to get retaliated, but you want to inflict maximum amount of damage. Of course, this unit is especially for the early game, but then you need to kind of do some tanking with these units as well, so not sure. High C is my placing for them. And then we have wraiths, pretty much same than those whites. The improvement is that they have a bit better stats and their vampirism value is kind of doubled. So they can regenerate a bit better by hitting enemies. So those improved stats and that improved vampirism, I will give them B tier. And then we have Phantasm. They have even some defensive value. They don't have that much of that life drain, but or rather vampirism, but I will give them D tier because in my experience their kind of special ability to inflict was it poison or wounding on the enemy so that the enemy takes some damage when their turn begins, it does not seem to work. And this weak unit without its special ability that can deal quite a bit of damage, I think that's kind of detrimental, so not really worth it as it is now. Then we have undead pets. Well, they do have a bit more hit points, but I mean, they kind of feel lackluster in the unit testing and in the campaign. Of course, speed is a bit greater than with skeletons, but the damage dealt with same week's amount of growth is not really that much better. so I'm going to give them D tier. Then we have the offensive upgrade of the unit, and for them, Barguest, I'm going to give, say, C tier, higher stats, and they can, well, they don't do actually that much more damage because they are still relatively weak. So once again, another unit that would need some other units to tank for it to be able to shine. Of course, it can summon some other units, which is rather nice, but in my experience, in my battles, I don't know if they are too short or what, but I don't usually get to use abilities that often in the campaign playthroughs. Then again, I have not been that actively trying to use them either, so perhaps there is that, but still, I don't think their ability is actually that good. So only C tier from me. And then we have this Armored Hound, and as in my opinion, Necropolis requires some tanks. Now we have the early game tank, which has actually nice ability. Once again, the ability to deal damage over turn. So when the enemy creature begins its turn, it will receive some fixed amount of damage. And as this upgrade has more hit points and more defense, it actually has some nice amount of time to actually apply that damage to the enemies, even though it does not do that much damage per se as compared to Barguest. But still, I think this variant was much more useful in my tests than the Barguest variant. So I would go to Armored Hound. B tier from me. Then let's move to tier 4. We have Grave Robber. And this, I have kind of mixed feelings for this unit. In the kind of basic battle unit test, this is the first Necropolis unit that actually begins to deal some damage. And I have to say that the attack to the 2 hexes away, or 1 hex away, so it's not pure melee, but it's kind of really short-ranged attack. It's really nice because the enemy cannot retaliate. At the same time, the unit has really low speed. Its initiative is low, so even though it performed quite well in the kind of unit brawl, I didn't much use them in those scenario playthroughs because they just couldn't get into the battle in time. The faster units already dealt with the enemies. So yeah, mixed feelings about these. I will give them weak C, because even if the unit is solid enough, what's the value of it if you cannot actually bring it to bear in the actual battle? It kind of felt in the classic matchup and in the single hero challenge like a zombie from Homm 3. And that's not kind of thing to say. But what saved it from D was that unit brawl. Then we have Merchant of Death. And somewhat improved stats. And what kind of is saving grace for it is that it can summon other units, which can be really nice. Once again though, if the battles don't last long so that you can accumulate enough those points to actually use these special abilities, then not sure if the unit is actually useful. But actually be able to summon skeletons and was it wights or wraiths, either of these, those are rather useful, but one should be able to utilize them, and I'm not sure if it's because of the playstyle or what, but I kind of feel that perhaps the requirements for using those unit special abilities are a bit too high, at least in the demo version. So those abilities, at least I use them quite rarely, or I can use them quite rarely as well. Then we have these Kennel Masters, and well, they can summon these undead pets, which, well, summons are always nice. Then again, undead pets are not really that great summons, and then they can kind of curse an enemy so it will receive max damage from 2 turns, which is rather nice. But once again, it's a special ability, so utility-wise, not sure. But I think I will give both of these the B tier, and here I will put this... Well, actually I think these are rather equal over here. Then let's move to tier 5. First we have Liches. Ranged units, I don't think their damage output is actually that great, and alone Liches are rather bad units. But what makes them great is their ability to raise dead or resurrect your fallen undead units. And it also brings back to life the units that have already fallen it, so it's not only healing. So that special ability is especially valuable for these. But the range attack by itself is not really that impressive, and because of that I will only give it B tier. But then about the upgraded variants. First we have Pestilent Liches. These are kind of the... feel like the Power Lich version of Homm 3. So you get area of attack, which I haven't seen too much in this game. So really nice to deal damage, and it seems the whole cloud actually deals the same amount of damage. So this unit can really dish out some damage, and the stats are somewhat improved compared to the basic Lich. What it loses though is the ability to raise dead. So that's kind of a setback. If it were able to do that as well, I would give them S tier, but as they are, I think strong A tier. And these Sanguine Liches will go to strong A tier as well. So they have improved stats over the Liches. They don't have area attack, but they can revive or raise dead significantly more than this basic variant. So I think in some battles this can be quite important to keeping your important units in life, or rather in death, or living dead, or however. So the special ability once again is the deciding factor for these Sanguine Liches. So strong A from me. Then we have Dread Knights. I haven't talked too much about the building chains, but what I like about the building chain of this unit is that it doesn't take wood as most of the other buildings take. And perhaps I had some limited access to wood in my playthroughs, but still I think I had much more supply of ore, so it was kind of easy to build this their dwelling. Regarding battles, I'm not really sure that the unit kind of shines like the Dread Knights of Homm 3, but they feel solid enough. They bring morale penalties to the enemy, and by no means they feel weak, but they don't feel kind of that superpower strong as Dread Knights of Homm 3. Kind of a solid unit feel from them. So B tier from me, strong B tier. And then we have these Avatars of War, and they have some nice special abilities, improving their attack, lowering the attack of the enemy, double strike, lowering the morale by 2, decent speed, decent initiative. So I think most definitely A tier. I'm just wondering, should I put them to strong A tier or somewhere just A tier? And I think I will put them to just A tier. Then we have Hollow Reapers, the other tier 6 or Dread Knights upgrade. What I like about them is that they have that death stare, like Mighty Gorgons in Homm 3. However, it doesn't feel quite so powerful as the Mighty Gorgon death stare, but still it seems that they do perform somewhat better in battles compared to these Avatars of War. Of course, double strike is always double strike, so perhaps not that much better, but especially for going after high tier stacks. I like these units, and I'm going to give them a strong A for that. So something like that. Then let's move to tier 7. First we have basic vampires, and I mean straight away to S tier. That vampirism, 40% damage dealt as health restored, relatively fast unit with relatively good initiative and great stats. I mean, in most cases it can just 1 versus 1 almost, well, most of the threats. And what's really great about them and the necromancy of Olden Era is that you can actually begin to increase that stack by fighting enemies in the map. And once you get to that point, at least I got the feeling that can actually anything stop Necropolis over there. And plus, in addition, you can get actually the basic growth of vampires to be 4 without any additional dwellings, which is rather impressive in my opinion. So clearly S tier material. Then we have Vampire Lords, and actually, in my opinion, clearly feels the best unit in this Necropolis roster. So practically dominates the battlefield. Of course, it can take some damage, it's not that tanky after all, but that vampirism and with some micro, in most of the cases it doesn't suffer any casualties in the battles, and you get the high basic growth, and with necromancy the numbers begin to swell, and as they are tier 7, and if you can, for example, from battles get say 3 to 5 of them, additional of them every day, then the stack is soon above 50, and I mean, how can you stop it after that? Perhaps there will be some nice spells that can stop them, but otherwise, I mean, feels just great. Then we have the last unit, Vampire Scholar, and this is kind of feels more of a tactical unit, as Vampire Lord is kind of just go there and kill everything. You perhaps need to use... Oh, and by the way, the enemy gets no retaliation against Vampire Lord. I forgot to mention that. That's really great. So, Vampire Scholars, they have that small range attack, so they attack 2 hexes away, which is nice. They have some really interesting special abilities, but I'm not sure. At least, perhaps, once again, I'm not too enthusiastic to just go and try out those abilities. Perhaps I should be more, but kind of the... they feel those abilities, Vampire Scholars, feel some kind of extra burden in the battles. You need to think more about how to position your units and when to explode the corpse and when to do the lifelink thing and so on and so forth. These Vampire Lords feel so much better, and actually in the unit test I was kind of uncertain that can I actually keep all of these guys alive in the battle. Well, they all survived, but it was relatively close. But those abilities are rather cool, and once again no retaliation. If it can attack from 2 hexes away, and as it can fly, it almost always can do that, no retaliation attack. But in my opinion, it kind of feels significantly weaker than the Vampire Lord variant. At the same time, those abilities can be great if one kind of sets up the battle to maximize the value from the abilities. But yeah, still S tier unit, and no questions asked from me. But yeah, that's my initial thoughts about Necropolis unit roster. Do you agree or disagree? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember, this is kind of the initial feelings of these units. So I hope we get great discussion, and I hope that that discussion will be of some help to the devs when they try to balance the game even further and make the units better and so on and so forth. And thank you very much for watching. If you like the content, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. Have a great rest of the day. QualityOldHomm out.